All right, welcome everyone. We'll get you all set up here and we'll get started just shortly. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Joe. Hi, Margot.
Hi, TeDi.
All right, so I hit record, so we're good. And the other thing I forget is because I don't usually have a waiting room, I forget to let people in. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. How are you all doing today? Oh,
Doing
fine. There we go. We have some voices. Hi, guys.
Hi, Helen.
Hi. Joe, I didn't see you on Saturday.
No, what happened Saturday?
We were spending on Saturday.
Well, I know, but I wasn't there and I can't remember what was going on. Something. Sorry, I in fact I saw the posts afterwards and thought, oh nice, I didn't even let you guys know I wasn't gonna be there. But anyway.
No worries. Anita, I just sent a big bag to your house.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting all set. I just got through doing some of your was reindeer or it was the green and red, but I just took the red out.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I'm
like
gonna,
the
I'm gonna
elf
leave it
one?
with something else.
Excellent.
It was
all right.
so
Well, we've got a couple minutes after, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to ask everybody except for Helen to mute, and then we'll do the interview. If you've got questions, you can post them in the chat. Let's see if I can open up the chat here. Okay, so you can post them in the chat, and we will come back to those toward the end. Okay, so I think we're all set. So welcome to all of you. Helen, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I knew that when you mentioned that you were going to be retiring almost immediately, that I wanted to do this because I really want to get your perspective. I think it's such an exciting place in life.
It's a change.
It is.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
So tell us just briefly, what are you retiring from?
Well, I'm a registered nurse, and specifically I'm a surgical nurse. And for the last, it's way too many decades, my area of specialization is education. So I teach people to do surgery. I teach nurses that have never worked in the operating room how to work in the operating room. And I've trained hundreds, and I mean hundreds. It takes 9 to 12 months per nurse and costs in between $100,000 and $140,000 each. So it's pretty intensive. We get to know each other very, very well. But typically, if they stay 2 years in the OR, they'll stay the next 20. So it is definitely, it's like worse than being pregnant because it takes longer. You know? Yeah, and it's like having a toddler because you can't blink literally for months, right?
Right.
And but it's very physical, and the demands are, because you're on call and you respond to emergencies, it's a commitment for a lifetime. You know, the phone rings and you've got your keys in your hand and you're out the door in 2 or 3 minutes, right? It's not something people can do well into their 60s and then some. So I was blessed to have a great career, and I'm blessed to be leaving it behind. We'll see how much I miss it.
So we'll back up a little bit, and then I want to talk about what's next.
Okay.
But I want to know how your business got started, what prompted that? What was the inspiration?
Okay. I don't know how many of you know my partner in crime, my best friend, Jonna Hudson. She is we've been friends since we were teenagers. We were roommates during college, and she is one of the most unique individuals it's been my pleasure to know. And we've stayed very close, even though we live, there's a whole continent in between the two of us. So she called me one day. This is, I don't know, I couldn't even tell you how many years ago. What is this? Oh, not 10, but more than 5. She called me one day, and it's typical Jonna. She says, you'll never guess what I'm doing. And I had to laugh, and I said, you're right, because anybody that knows Jonna would never guess what she's doing at any given moment. And she said, I'm knitting. And I was speechless. She said, I'm knitting socks. Well, I had to sit down because I knew she was insane. That this was a girl that it was, if she ever would ever need to hem a pair of pants, first she would say is, why didn't you just buy them short enough? Why didn't you just buy them the right size? And then she's more likely to go after a piece of tape or a safety pin or a stapler than to ever actually use string for anything. So for her to be knitting, I mean, that she could have called me from the moon and I'd have been less surprised. So we finished the conversation, family and kids and whatever, right? And at the end of our conversation, she said, now all I have to do is figure out how to combine my passions and make them pay for themselves. And I thought, don't ask, don't ask, don't ask, but I asked. I said, okay, Jonna, so what are your passions? And she said, well, knitting, of course. She's been at it for 2 weeks, still on her first sock, but it's her life passion. And she said, and travel. And I said, well, Jonna, I said, those crazy ladies that do the scrapbooking thing? And we talked about that for a little bit. And I said, well, why don't we make a travel company and we'll arrange trips for people that knit? And I have to say that was less than 6 months later, we signed the paperwork for the LLC. And that's how we started our company. We thought that we would plan trips for women that like to knit with other women in new and strange and exciting places. So that was the start of the business.
So were you already doing fiber arts at that point?
I had been, my grandmother and my mom and my aunt taught me how to, I don't ever remember not being able to do embroidery and crocheting. And I did learn to sew. I did not learn to knit until I was an adult, but I was very comfortable with anything that involved sticks or needles and thread and yarn kind of thing. But as far as what I'm doing now, no, that came about later.
Okay. So then what? Where does she live?
Well, she's in Washington now, but she was in Detroit when that happened, and I'm in
Okay.
Naples, Florida.
Okay. So you have a business together.
Yeah, we did. We formed a company called Cast Off, like anchors away, and Cast On, like you do for your knitting. It was an LLC. So we thought we were cocoa knits, cast on, cast off, right? Okay. And we started trying to get the domain and trademark and all that. And it's like, oh my gosh, apparently cocoa knits was not as unique as we thought it was, right? So we started looking for other ways to brand ourselves, to name ourselves. And we kind of had the have yarn will travel mentality. So that's how we ended up being Yarn Travel. And when she checked, the domain was available, everything was available. So we stayed Cocoa Knits, but we do business as Yarn Travel.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the mechanics of that. Now we've divided that up since, so that Yarn Travel's now the kind of the retail portion of it. And then the cast off and cast on, that's in the background for travel. So why is a travel company selling fiber on WAFA? Because of COVID. COVID stopped us dead in our tracks. We were getting ready to do our do our first trips and planning. And who knew there's so much planning involved to actually sponsor a group trip. And COVID really shut us right down. So that was okay, well, now what are we gonna do? And Jonna, we'd talk every month and she'd say, we need revenue. And Joe Campbell heard about WAFA and told me about it. And so I was part of the second ever WAFA. And I can remember calling Jonna the day after that saying, I found revenue. It was unexpected, never ever expected to sell the things that it just, was not part of the business plan when we drew it up. But I enjoy it. I really do.
Do you have a favorite product that you create?
I like all the plant blends. I'm in Florida, and I think even if I wasn't in Florida, I've always liked to knit with linen. I think that, I guess if I was to say my mission in life, my mission in fiber would be that people could wear the beautiful work they create year round. And these plant blends, the plants are so nice to wear next to your skin. And you can wear linen, you can wear, bamboo and tencel, and you can wear that year round. Well, maybe not so much, right? And maybe you don't want that wool next to your skin. So I would have to say that my favorite all in all is Cruella. And that was a linen, bamboo, and tencel blend that looks like Glenn Close's hair. But I actually grabbed these. So this last week I've been crazy about they're like luminous teal and luminous sun. I did a whole line of different colors like that, and I mean it spins like a dream. It's so great to wear against your skin. It's a nice, strong yarn. It holds lace well, and it's going to last. It lasts forever. Right. It's really hard to wear it out. If you get tired of it, unknit it and make it into something else.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do you find that you have to educate people about plant fibers? They're just not as common.
Well, I had to educate me first. Mm-hmm. I'd always liked linen, and living in Florida, it's very easy to wear linen. And all I knew about was wet spinning linen. That was the only thing, and there was not many people doing it. I had to learn first. I did that by myself, learned how to wet spin linen. And boy, I said a lot of bad words and made a heck of a mess, but I did master it. And I understood why people really, we spin to spin because we like spinning. Believe me, there are easier ways to get yarn, than spinning. And we're not going to spin something that's unpleasant to spin, and so because it's very tactile, it's very relaxing. And if you have to fight it, you're not going to enjoy it. So I had to figure out a way to make it enjoyable and make it so people would be willing to try it, that they knew they didn't have to start trying to wet spin linen on day one with plants, right? And that took a little bit more time, but
right.
Yeah. So I can so how did I learn this? Well, how did I start spinning? Let's go way back to the way back. Jonna, she likes to explore every aspect of something. I'm not so much. It's like, no, I like it this way, and this is how we're going to do it. So she drug me to my very first fiber festival, the Great Big Allegan Festival in Michigan. This thing's huge, absolutely huge. And I'm thinking, okay, I could probably get some yarn there. Well, she wants to go look at sheep, and she wants to pick out a sheep, and she wants to get a fleece, and she wants to do the whole thing from sheep all the way. And I look at her and I look at the new sandals on my feet. And I said, I am not going to the barn. There's poop in there. I'm not going to the barn. I don't want to know anything about sheep. I'm looking for yarn. And she says, stay right here. I'll be back in 20 minutes. So she left me unsupervised at a fiber festival for 20 minutes.
Oh,
20
you did
minutes.
a lot of damage in 20 minutes.
I did a tremendous amount of damage. There was a young man playing with a Turkish spindle, and I had never seen such a thing. And I watched him and I watched him and I watched him, and he said, want to try it? And I said, yeah. Well, when she came back 20 minutes later, I had 2 spindles and 3 bags of fiber. And it never got better. It never got better. I got more and more and more. And I said the same thing about blending. Nope, don't want to do it. Don't even tell me that I want to just buy my little bags of fiber and off I go. And then dyeing and then weaving and then all these other things keep I fight tooth and nail not to learn anything new, but I do. So I started spinning, and I learned from my friends, Joe being one of them, that Judith McKenzie was the person you really need to learn from. And she was, when we did, I went to all the classes I could afford to go to or afford to take the time off to go to. And I got to spend 6 days with her at John C. Campbell. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know John C. Campbell, but you can get up at dawn and you can stay in those studios until you drop. And it was fantastic. And it was just kind of a total immersion class into fiber. It was, I don't even know how to explain it. It wasn't an intro to spinning class. It was an intro to fiber and dyeing class. So she had those huge, big steamer cases filled with different things. And we got to play with everything. So and of course, I wasn't paying attention during class quite a bit because I was having so much fun playing with things, but I would ask her about, well, why does this go with this and why can't this go with the other thing? And we really got to explore all the different fibers and what they do, what their characteristics and what they don't do, and boom, boom, boom. And she told me, she said, you can blend anything you want, but you have to tell me why you're going to do it. So, and that's so purposeful and so intentional that you have to, you can't say, I just want to see how it turns out. No, why did you put A with B? What are you expecting? What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What are the characteristics that you're looking for? And that, 6 days of total immersion and then, follow up from that really was, it changed my whole focus. I do enjoy spinning very much, but I almost rather blend. Then what do you do with all that stuff, right?
Right.
Piles up after a while.
It does. So I want to talk about your blends. I'm a huge fan. I don't know a whole lot of other people who like to spin those protein plant blends, but I love that. And when I discovered that there was somebody else who did that, that was really exciting to me. So talk about a little bit about the inspiration for that. There's some controversy about that, and I would love to just talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Wet spinning linen is not the most fun thing in the world. It's rough, it's stubborn, it drips everywhere. It is not the beautiful, as I'm feeling on my fingers, right? You don't have that beautiful soft fiber going through there. You think it's sandpaper. And I learned to spin with both hands because I was wearing my fingertips out on it. And I thought there has to be a better way. Okay, there has to be a better way. And I started, because I had used other fibers that had bamboo in them, I knew that it was possible to mix them. But the part that was really the changer for me, I'll pull this one apart, was that when you spin fibers of different staple lengths, you can end up with all the long ones being pulled out, and then you have this handful of fluff. And when I was first doing this, I used a lot of cotton, and I was forever ending up with a ton of my yarn was horrible, because it would be 20 yards of linen and then all this little cotton boom 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 boom,
yeah.
which is didn't work. But by blending them and then spinning from the fold, right, you're able to keep it together. So those shorter staples end up getting trapped, and you don't end up with a handful of little short stapled fluff at the end. And it allows the different staple lengths, they pop out. Unless you've got, now wet spinning linen is another story, but those little ends kind of pop out, and that gives a little bit of a halo effect to sometimes huge texture effect. And then you can kind of get some of those little teeny bits in there, and that gives not just the halo, but it also gives a miniature thick and thin. But by doing this, it allows people to spin in the way they were accustomed to spinning, right? And it's very comfortable and it's very natural for them. And then they get a little braver when it's not all work and some of it's a little bit more fun. So when I'm thinking about things, for example, when I'm mixing, one of my favorites is to mix hemp and merino. I love that one. So why hemp and not linen? Because I can do both, but you get a different effect. Right. So the hemp's a little bit shorter, it's a little bit kinkier, it's a little bit softer. So you get more of a halo and more ends sticking out. Okay. The linen is a little bit longer, it's a little bit stiffer, it's a little bit thicker, a thicker fiber. So what you get with that is you cannot make something homogeneous that way. All right. So if you're shaking, if you shake, I don't know, if you have red Kool-Aid and green Kool-Aid and you put them in a thing, you can make one color, right? But if oil and water, for example, they're never going to blend completely. So something like that is always going to have a distinct color that you're never going to make it muddy. All right. And then the fiber also makes your wools not as warm, right? It's not going to retain as much heat. Now, I understand some of the controversy because you're looking at fibers that have completely different characteristics. Right. Okay. So my first problem was the first thing I had to justify to Judith was, how are you going to wash these things? Right? How are you going to care for it? So, and basically, my argument back was anybody that's just spent several hundred hours making a sweater is going to hand wash it. Right. So as long as you're hand washing, you're pretty safe. Now, believe me, if you're doing like an all linen garment, you can wash and dry that. Right. You can wash and dry that. So even if you do get superwash wool, most people don't put superwash wool in the washer and dryer, right, kind of thing. So I could throw that one out. And then, started looking at, okay, so what do you do about the fact that your merino's so soft, but your linen kind of feels like sandpaper? Well, I believe you have to show linen who's boss. And there's a lot of people that talk about boiling the linen, which believe me, there's a lot of pectin in it. That's why it sticks together so well when you're spinning it wet. It's done. And that's why, what's the old story about the thumb, right? Their thumbs are so big and their lips are so big because they're always licking their thumbs when they're spinning linen. It's because saliva, right? Saliva has the enzymes that break down the pectin and it makes that flax stick together and softer. Okay. So my trick for linen is I get it wet. I get it soaking wet in a colander and I let it drain. and I stick it in the freezer. Freeze that rock solid, and then I take it out and I run hot water over it. And once it's thawed, I stick it in the freezer again. And you know, have you ever frozen an onion? You know how that onion or a green pepper, how it goes in so firm, and then when it comes out of the freezer, it's like mush.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Okay, so freezing breaks down the cell walls of a plant,
Mm-hmm.
so it softens it up right away. And that makes it a lot easier to spin with, and a lot more. It's not like, okay, so you'll try and hold a piece of yarn up. It goes, no, well, it keeps it softer. It breaks it down a little bit. And anybody that's, you know, ever bought a linen garment knows the thing lasts forever. I mean, you practically have to wear it a year or two before it stops creasing on you every time you move. But eventually it softens up and it breaks down, and it's all, you know, it lasts. Linen's a 20-year, 20-year product. But so that's kind of some of the method behind the madness. There is what effect do I want? What do I want for a visual effect? What do I want for a yarn? What kind of a garment am I going to make? I mean, the plants are really nice for lace. It just makes that lace stand out so well. It really holds the pattern. It's not as soft, it's more distinct.
Right. Just a little crisp. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's going to stay that way for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Would I be so crazy about it if I lived in Michigan year round? Maybe not. But I really like the fact that I can make stuff that I can use year round in Florida, where, when I go home, I have to buy socks before I go, right? We don't wear socks in Southern Florida. We're lucky we wear shoes. But it's all good.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about, I mean, that makes sense, but I hadn't thought about plant fiber, that blend would make that a cooler fabric.
Yeah. And some of the things give such a luster. That's why I'm so tied up about these new ones, is that Tencel always has a luster,
right,
to it, and it just is, it's just there. And the more you touch it, and the more you play with it, and the more you feel it, it when you put it on, it feels cool, right? Like silk does, right? It feels good. It feels really good. My other new passion has been Polworth. So this is what's on the bill today. It's got a longer staple length, and it's got the merino softness, but it's got that same thing. It's got that little bit of luster to it, so it just is shiny as opposed to dull. So I'm having a heck of a good time with that.
Yeah, I love that luster piece, because I don't use sparkly stuff.
Yeah.
It gives you some of that, without using Angelique Firestar.
Right. It's like it's like a pearl. You know how the pearls have that glow? It's the same thing. It has that real soft glow, and it's warm and it's cool at the same time. It's really an odd glow, but again, it's very tactile, visual, and sometimes olfactory.
Right. So you talked about the difference in staple length. So the other thing that I had heard, controversy wise, is that when you blend those two different fibers, protein and cellulose, degrade one another. And I'm guessing that the insinuation was that the plant fibers in particular degrade the wool. I just haven't, I'm not one for the fiber police anyway, but I just haven't found that to be the case. And I just think those blends are such a joy to spin. There's that little bit of drag, I guess, from, like when you're hemp and linen in particular, and so much character in the yarns.
I've not heard that, and
Okay.
I've not read that, and I have to think, that okay, so World War II, Lindsay Woolsey, they were making everything out of a linen and wool blend, and this is during war times when we don't have textiles as we would like, and what they were putting all the kids in linen and wool blend, right? So I have to I have to think that it was a very strong blend. The
Right.
fibers
Long lasting too, right? Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I'll tell you. I can say that I'm not seeing that, but then
Yeah,
again, it's
me
not
either.
like I've had it for decades either. So
Right.
I don't know, but that's really something to look to do a little bit more research, because again, when you've spent hundreds of hours creating something, the last thing you want it to do is to deteriorate,
Right.
right? You really
Right.
want to keep it, Judith, one of her jokes, she's told the stories that always in Denmark and Sweden and Norway and everything, where they did, and everything, linens were linen, right? They always gave the new linens, the new sheets, to the newlyweds, because they wouldn't notice that they were scratchy until they broke them in for 2 or 3 years, and then then they would maybe notice that the sheets were scratchy, but by then, I think so.
They
To
were
me,
all broken by then.
yeah, the one thing I do shy away from cotton. I just don't enjoy spinning as much, and I also don't. I find cotton, it's hard to keep it white, white. And if I want something white, I want it not gray. I want it white. So I don't use that. That's the one thing I could say I really don't use much of. But I'm game to try anything else.
Yeah, cotton is an interesting. I'm growing cotton,
Mm-hmm.
colored cotton. So it'll be an interesting adventure. It's a rabbit hole I've just kind of started to dig.
Good for you. That's great.
We'll see. We'll see. All right. So let's come back and talk about retirements
Oh dear.
a little
Yes.
bit, because you have a whole nother iteration of your life in front of you.
Yes.
What's the plan? I think you maybe have some exciting things going on in the background.
I do. And we've kind of, we've worked towards this for a long time. Jonna retired faster than we thought she was going to. So some of our, what do they call it? When an athlete's getting ready to do his big event, he's got to peak, right? At the right time. So we were kind of like the way trying to gear up to peak for retirement, so that we had momentum and a plan. Well, it didn't work as well as we thought it was going to. So the thing that's been important to us from the very beginning has been the companionship and the camaraderie and the friendship, like spelling bee, quilting bee, stitching bitch, sewing circle, all those things always involve women together, right? So unless you are, extremely young, we don't tend to make friends with our thumbs, right? We tend to make friends and relationships in proximity to each other. And if you can keep our hands busy while this is happening, we'll sit there for days.
Right.
I mean, I don't care. I could wait at the doctor's office 2 or 3 hours if I've got knitting with me.
Yep.
I won't even notice. Yeah, I missed a flight because they changed the gate, and I, looked up, and it's like, where'd everybody go? So, so that's been our goal. We understood that women needed other women, Oh, I'm going to tell you a story about that. That makes that so clear. We had a young lady that joined our local little sewing, knitting, spinning circle, and she was very young, and she'd been bullied, and it was pretty traumatic on her, and she, was coming with her aunt to learn how to knit and spin and things like that. And the amount of support, I could not believe the number of senior women that were cheering her on her Facebook page and sending her texts. And you know, she's grown into quite an accomplished young woman. But without all those, you know, you need other women in your lives. The second thing John and I discovered, and you know, and we're quite pleased to discover, is that there's a tremendous community of women that would travel if they had somebody to travel with. And it's all about, who knows if I didn't show up, right? We could make sure you got where you were supposed to be, that you were safe while you were there, and then you got back home. And then most of us don't require a whole lot of entertainment during that time. So this has been, so what's up for retirement? Well, the first thing is John is coming to Florida. In fact, I can see John had just signed in. John is coming to Florida in December, and we have some destinations we're going to check out with that in mind for you know, destination group trips. And we've really, you know, discussed, do we just want to travel? Do we want to see things? Do we want to have a class? You know, so we're working on some, you know, gathering more information and finding some really nice, suitable spots. And then personally, as far as retirement goes, I have a couple of things that actually start this week. I'm going to be doing a coffee and crafts every Friday morning. I have a beautiful space, absolutely ridiculously beautiful space. I could hold 125, maybe 150 people, with a beautiful kitchenette area, and just, it's in natural light and everything, and it's free. So I'll be having coffee and crafts every Friday morning. And then at least one Friday afternoon a month, I'm hoping for two, I'm going to host a Mommy and Me craft event. So, and I mean, it's going to be, we're talking minuscule charge, $5 or $10, right, for mommy. And I'm assuming they're, you know, going to be under 6 years old because they won't be in school, to come and do a very simple fiber-based craft. And so I've been reading about everything. You know, I figured out how to spin with a stick and different felting chores. And I think our first project is going to be a holiday bar of soap, where you just wrap the fiber around a bar of soap, right? It's kind of messy. It's going to keep the kids busy.
Yeah.
They'll all have clean hands when they're done. But that's been a really, you know, the Mommy and Me group in our local area has complained about that nonstop. And one of my colleagues, she said, hey, you do crafts. And it just the timing works out really well. So that still goes back to exactly, you know, what our original goal was to keep widening that circle and making more friends and giving a place for women particularly to be able to get together. Now, we do have, every once in a while, a man shows up. That's okay. I mean, who cares, right? Who cares? They're welcome. But typically the people interested in the fiber arts are primarily female.
Right.
So that's my immediate plan.
All right.
So who knows what'll happen after that. I woke up this morning and I didn't know what day it was. And I thought, are you kidding me? How can I not know what day it was? I thought that took longer.
It's the time change.
Yeah. I thought that took longer before you forgot about what day of the week it was.
Yeah, everything just kind of blends into itself, I guess.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm looking at increasing, definitely doing some work on our website, on my Facebook pages. You know, I've got some guild events coming up where I'll be a vendor for several different things. Not much, you know, no more than one a month. But we're really hoping to get the trips. We waited through all of COVID, and it's time now.
So exciting.
Yeah,
So exciting. And I think you're right. I think as women, we would travel if we, felt safe.
right. Yep,
A
safe.
little bit of a plan. Yep.
Yeah. And, there's other people that want activities, I need something, I need yoga in the morning, and then I want something after coffee, and boom, boom, boom. And others could care less. Right. So one of our priorities was that 24/7, wherever we were, there would be a room open with tea or whatever. But there is a room open for people to gather at any time of the day or night. And if you wanted to go, if there was a trip to a museum or winery or wherever, if you want to go, fine. If you don't want to go, fine. We're all different.
Yeah. Oh, I think that just sounds so exciting.
Good.
All right, so I'm looking down here and I see, I don't know if I'm not sure Anita is still here. Oh, she is. So she asked about your drum carder. She wanted to know what drum carder you use.
I have an Ashford Electric, an Ashford Wild Carder, and I have the big Louette Carder. So I tend to use I only use the electric. Man, that thing's a beast. It can card.
That's the one with the top down thing?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's got some oomph to it. I tend to use that when I want a more homogeneous blend. And then but then I use the hand carders for things where I'm kind of more or less painting in the layers. And then the mad carder, that thing is just, that's a beast. That's for wild things, and I don't use it as much. But when I'm specifically carding things that I want to leave a lot of texture in, or if I want to put in a bunch of I like putting in a bunch of yarn pieces. Right? Those always go really well. But those are the main three that I use.
All right.
And we sell those too. So should somebody have a burning desire, I can hook them up.
All right.
Yeah.
So well, since you've said that, let's ask. So you are a dealer.
Right, for Ashford and Louette.
Okay.
And then the Pompalooms. And I'm now that I'm retired, I am finalizing contracts with some other companies as well. But really, not so much on the equipment. I'm happy where we are equipment, but I'm looking at selling more weaving supplies and more yarn, more commercially prepared things. Yeah, Ashford just came out with a new line of weaving cones that are a cotton and linen blend. And it's beautiful. They're beautiful. And they're reasonable as well. So those will be going up on the website. I just got my first shipment in, and I mean, yes, the plans abound, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So any other questions that anyone in the audience has? We would love to take those. And then I'm going to ask Helen where we can find her. All right. So I don't see any other questions. So tell us where.
And I have a question without tapping. Sorry. Sorry,
yeah,
TeDi,
hi.
sorry.
Go for it, Margot.
Typing is not my thing. Okay. So, Helen,
Yes, ma'am.
you were talking about Tencel,
Yes, ma'am.
which is just, okay. I've never spun it. I have knit with it. It's got absolutely gorgeous luster. And you are correct. It does hold a lace pattern beautifully. I decided to knit a sweater with it. Not a smart idea.
Yeah.
I mean, not good, because it just it didn't hold.
Yeah, it
It didn't
grew.
hold its shape.
Yeah.
And I, honest to goodness, I mean, I spent a lot of time knitting this sweater, and I was so disappointed.
I understand. And it was a double whammy, because not only does the knit stretch, right? But the fiber itself stretches, and it doesn't have the same memory that wool does. So it doesn't tend to, it keeps growing, you started out with a sweater and you ended up with a sweater dress kind of thing. So if you, with a high enough wool content, the wool supports the tencel, and with that linen content and bamboo, that kind of evens things out. I would not, for exactly the reason that you just mentioned, I would not use tencel all by itself as a garment, but I would use it for weaving, for placemats, tablecloth, something that I wasn't really worried about. It didn't have to fit a person, because I do like that. I do like that luster and that work. But yeah, it grows.
I
And
wish I would have known that, because I designed this sweater and I found a lace pattern that I loved,
mhm.
made a cardigan, and just used straight tencel. I had never used it before. And I wish I would have known it. So now it's a matter of ripping it all out and either doing a tencel with holding together a strand of lace weight yarn, wool
Yeah.
yarn, 100% wool with it, and then redoing the sweater. But I did
Or-
it because I loved the feel of the tencel. It felt like silk, like you
Yeah.
said. It felt exactly like silk.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, that's one thing I haven't blended. I haven't blended tencel and silk together. And I wonder what kind of properties, that would have. You'd be like, huh, is that a silk extender? Am I going to get all the silk properties at half the cost? I don't know. I'm going to have to try it. I don't know how that would work. Would think, one of the things I've done before is I've used a linen base as one of the plies, or when spun around a linen base. You might be able to get away with using a really fine linen thread as your carrying thread. I don't know what it would do if you did like every other row with the tencel, because it's still by itself, it's gonna stretch. It needs something to support it. Oh, I'm sorry. I bet you spent a lot of time on that.
I did and was disappointed. So you blend linen.
I blend, I'll show you this one. Okay. This one right here. I don't know how well you can see the shine, right? This is bamboo and linen and tencel. So it's got that shine to it, but it's going to be well supported. So when I'm blending something like that, you can see it's not homogeneous. Okay. You can see that the
Right.
color is not the same. So to avoid the problem that you just described, I blend the tencel and the linen together, and I blend it several times so that it's more homogeneous. And then I add the colored fiber in.
Which is the
So
bamboo.
which is the bamboo.
But I
Yeah.
found, and I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry, but you're making these blends. So, and I'm going to be very honest with you. The colors that you have created is like, oh, I so want to spin that, but it's got bamboo in it. And I made a sweater for my husband that had bamboo and wool, and it started out perfect. And by the end of the day, it was down to his knees. And because of the bamboo that was in it. So I shy away completely from bamboo. I wish I would have known about this tencel yarn. So when you're talking linen, I've got linen. I bought some linen cones to use in weaving.
Mhm.
Okay. I have, and they're hard. I mean, they are, it is not
Yeah.
soft. It's like, I am not weaving with this yet, because it's like, oh, this is going to hurt my hands.
Yeah.
So when you're working with linen in your blends, and the hemp fibers, because I know hemp can also be hard, coarse or rough like linen. Okay.
Mhm.
Is the linen fiber soft, or um is it where you have to use wet hands?
You don't have to wet spin it. You don't need to do that. Some of the linen, I get linen from different places, and it's been treated in different ways. Basically, an unbleached flax is going to be the hardest and the stiffest. Okay. Once it's been bleached and or dyed, that helps break the fibers down and soften it some. Now getting something that's been bleached or dyed commercially is a lot softer than something you would dye yourself. When I dye the fiber myself, the linen myself, it is stiffer, and it does like to be wet spun. But I will take my fiber and put it in a colander and get it wet, soaking wet, let it drip, and then stick that whole colander in the freezer. Okay. And then bring it out and do it again and let it dry. Then you can card it, and it's going to be much softer because you've broken down some of those cell walls.
Okay.
And you could boil it. I prefer not to boil things. It's just a mess, and it's on the stove, and it's hot, and no one's ever got burnt by sticking something in the freezer. So I
Oh
just
no,
feel like,
and
yeah.
when you first said that here a little while ago, where it was like, and then use the analogy with like a pepper or an onion, where it breaks down, it's like, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so when I'm ready to weave with that linen that I got, it's like, hey, I'm gonna skein some of that up. I'm gonna get Cone. I'm gonna get it wet. I'm gonna put it in the freezer.
Yeah, show it who's boss. It's just like a new purse.
And
You
make
put
it
on
so
the
that
floor.
any
Like
little
that
tricks.
analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? And I mean, when we're weaving, we want it to be pliable and soft, or it's spinning, knitting, whatever we're doing craft wise, and that's what has stopped me from spinning um linen or flax, is because it's like, you know what, it's going to rip my hands up, and I just I just don't want to do that. I don't want to put my hands are very, very, very old, and I don't
Try a
want to hurt
blend.
them.
Try one of Helen's blends. It will be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, she's got some Helen, you have absolutely gorgeous blends. And and it's like, oh, I want to try, oh no, I can't try that one. It's got that fiber in it, and I can't use that fiber. Or it's got that, and it's like, ooh, I'm so deathly allergic to that. But so, in learning the different the different blends that you're doing and how they interact with each other, helps me when I'm trying something new, and things like that. Like, I am just experimenting with spinning color. It's like, oh, no. Just give me all the natural stuff. I'm fine. Don't give me no color. So I'm learning to spin color, and so when I'm seeing like the Wafa sales and your sale and any other of our vendors that have these gorgeous colored blends and bats, it's like, oh. So the more I can learn about the fiber itself, how it interacts, or what's the word, how the fiber works by the individual fibers, how they work together, then I feel like I'm more educated to go, okay, so Helen talked about that. I'm going to try that one.
I think
Or,
this would be a
this
lovely
is what Helen said.
conversation. to continue in the community. It would be a great post, Margot, because I think there are lots of people that have the same question. But I'm going to cut us off here pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
So the first thing that I want to
Thank
do
you.
is I want Helen to tell us where we can find her website, social media, all that stuff. So we know where to find her.
Okay, so we do have a website, yarntravel.com. Our website is going to undergo quite a bit of change over the next few weeks because I'll have time to do it. We have put a lot of commercial items on there, and we'll add to that. But what we've not done was really use the website for a lot of the custom blends, mainly because I do them in small batches. I really do it in small batches. It's just like the difference between a Mrs. Fields, chocolate chip cookie and a Keebler cookie. They're both chocolate chip cookies, but when you start mass producing, you lose something on that. So we are going to add the custom items. We also have a Facebook page, which is Facebook/Yarn Travel. And we'll be, that's more been just kind of a little conversation piece. We've not really pushed that mechanism as a mechanism for sales. And then we have a secret Facebook group that it's a secret one. It's for sales. It's for, sales, and for, people that get, it's like, hey, I'm going to be having this on sale. You can pre-order it, kind of thing. So those are the big ways right now, through the website, through Facebook. Facebook, because it comes right to my phone. I tend to see questions and things like that a little bit quicker. But now that I'm retired, it's just a bad thing in the OR when your phone goes off and it's somebody asking about yarn. It's just considered really poor form. Like, just hold here, Mrs. Smith. I'll be back. So yeah, I'm looking forward to making it, more interactive and with more options for the different things.
Wonderful.
And we want to travel. We are going to travel. That's just, it has to be done. It's time.
Well, I hope you will share your adventures.
Yes, we will. We certainly will.
Wonderful. Well, Helen, thank you so much for doing
Thank
this.
you.
It's just
It was
so lovely. And thank you to everybody who joined us this evening. We got it recorded this time, so I need to do some techie things, but we'll hopefully have it up probably for the end of the week.
Okay, so there's 1 minute. Jonna, say hi. I talked about you during the whole first half.
Yes. Hello.
It's dark.
Today. And yes, we're looking forward to having some travel and be able to see people. I think we're going to just leave it dark. You know that? a tooth day. So I got a new crown, so I'm royalty again.
Atta girl.
Yeah. I did want to tell Margot, we did learn from Judith, when you're playing with a new fiber, to knit yourself a cuff for your arm, and to wear it, wash it, wear it in the shower. You'll see if it's stretching, if it's sagging, right, instead of knitting a whole sweater.
Thank you for that.
Lessons
I
learned.
appreciate that. I appreciate all the information. And TeDi, I love that you're doing this. So,
I'm sure
this is awesome.
Yeah, so it's all about having fun. Our goals are very small, very small. We've been a wild success thus far and expect to carry on.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.